Hello and welcome to today's product update webinar for Just Planet for our latest release released last week. Some preliminary information: this is a GoToWebinar and all attendees are automatically muted to optimize the quality of audio. If you do have a question, please feel free to ask this either via the in-app chat box or the questionnaire tool, and we will try to answer the question in webinar. Some information about me. I am your host. My name is Jan Vierguts. I am the development lead for Just Planet. So, what's new? We do have some new functionality in this, and the first thing that we want to talk about in this webinar is going to be the master data origin, which will help you find out where your tasks or jobs are originally coming from in regards to the templates and job and component templates that you've used to create them. We do add a new job status, the standby state, for if you have to wait for an indefinite amount of time because you wait, for example, for external approval to continue a job. And we also enhanced some functionality in the job view, which should help you navigate your job lists faster. But let's take this step by step. So, what do we mean when we talk about the job and task master data origin? When you created a job or a task before using a job or component template, that information about the master data was only provided with anything that, give me 1 second, please. Sorry about this. So this information was provided in relation to an active template, or so while you have not yet resolved a job or a task from its component, respectively job template. What does it mean relieved? That relationship was revoked on any scheduling relevant change. So basically, if you just wanted to change for example, the production time per unit on any given task, we would have to remove the connection to the origin component as well as the job template. And once that was done, you basically had no idea where the task originally came from, if you had entered that by hand or if that was based on a component or job template. Additionally, regarding component templates, we do have in the job view a additional visualization help to try to help you keep your components together. And that, of course, was also lost before. So what happens now? Now, when you create a job or task based on master data with any kind of template, that information will be kept with that task or job, even if the active relationship has been removed. That means you will never lose information about a job or task origin anymore. That also means that on a component template task level, you also don't lose the visualization help. For example, the additional area in the job view. That is all a bit theoretical, so let's take a quick look at how this looks in app. So this is my Just Planet account, and let's take a quick look and focus our views here on job 15 and 16. So what we can see here is that both of them are created with component templates. That's immediately obvious by the component lines here and here. And if I open this up, you see the additional tasks that are part of this component. You will also notice that on this line here in job 16, this looks a bit different, and that is because this component reference was edited. Now, what does that mean? That means that in the original, this is both the same component, in the original, the production time per unit for the drawing task here was set to be 4 hours long, and in job 16, I changed that to be 8 hours long. And so how would you be able to change this? Simple enough. As always, you could either go directly to the task edit. We added a new functionality to allow you to go into a component edit, which we will look into. And in this details dialog, You can change either the component reference name, you can set the component predecessors as you would have in the job view before, and the job details dialog before. And of course, you can make changes. You can either go deeper in or you can make changes here in this dialog as you do in all other manage details dialog. So let's say we want to say, okay, in this part, the cut drawing is a lot quicker because the design was easier, as an example. So what happens if I click OK? The time for this task, as expected, is shortened. But what also happens is, as you can see here, this is now an edited component. It's no longer part of the original master data component template, but it still tells you that all these 4 tasks are part of your component template. So this information is no longer lost. Additionally, if I now hover over any of these jobs to focus on this more, these informations are of course also part of the tooltips that you can actually select for the tasks. So if you take a look at lines 3 and 4 in this tooltip, which will say job template, which is currently empty because this job is no longer part of the original template that it was created from, but that information is one line below. This job was created from the job template routing basic. So as we said before, this information is not lost. And if we take a look way down the list, we also have the same information about the component template part. So the task component template is no longer bound, which is why this line is empty, but this task was originally created from the prep work component. Of course, this is not only part of the tooltip, but you can also use that in the filters. And if we can see here, we have the job template filter, which would or searches for everything that is still connected to the original template, which is why we no longer have job 15 filtered in here. But we also added a new filter, the created from job template filter. And if we take a look here, job 15 shows up again alongside with everything still connected or originally based on that template. So this helps you to get a really quick and easy view about the current status of your jobs and how they relate to your master data. Of course, same thing for component templates. Okay, now let's take actually a quick look at the third option that I mentioned in the beginning. How did the new collapse functionality help you, or where do you find that in the job view? You see this new pyramid shape, the triangle pointing upwards. This allows you to collapse all jobs currently opened, and it even collapses them to the lower levels, just so that if you have had a lot of things that you needed to work through to get something done, and then you want to start your next process, help you concentrate, focus on the new task at hand, so that we're cleared up for our next step. But before we take a look at that next step, let's have a quick throwback to the PowerPoint. So we have a new job status, standbys. What is the use case for this? The typical example: your business is highly customized, and in normal cases, your customer needs to give you approval of a draft before you can actually start manufacturing something. So your typical job structure would then be that you have an internal draft, then you have a roughly scheduled time until you await your customer approval, and once that is back in, you actually start the processing. Now, you usually can, in the first step, say, okay, let's give the customer a week to evaluate our drafts, get back to us, and if they get back into our week, we can commit to a very specific due date. And then the customer does not get back to you. And you maybe even give them a couple days leeway, but at some point you need to say, okay, guys, if we didn't hear back from you, we need to actually free up our resources that we have planned for use on your processing parts to processing on customers that did reply. And since you don't know when you ever get this customer approval, you do not know where to put the remaining task, the actual processing, back to. So you actually say, okay, I don't want to blockade my resources at all. I do not want anything of the leftover tasks to be scheduled. And that is where you set the respective job on standby. So if you do set a job on standby, that allows you to stop the scheduling of all tasks without shop floor feedback. That of course means that if you did the drafting part and you also managed that in Just Plan It and that is finished, that information stays as is. As always, the operator feedback, the actual shop floor feedback that you have approved in your plan is reality to us. So therefore, this stays scheduled. But anything that is still ready or even just planned, we do not schedule anymore. Scheduling in this case means we do not assign a resource to it. We do not block resources for it. It will basically get no bar in the visualization and no scheduling results because no blockage takes place. As a warning, this is the first time that this gives the job status a real scheduling impact and a high impact at that. Our old job statuses of ordered, quoted, and released did not have any actual scheduling impact. While it might have been a very useful tool for you to organize your data, the actual mathematical scheduling that takes place on the back end was not impacted by it. But standby, as explained before, has a heavy impact as it blocks scheduling at all. To help with visualizing that, we in the job view also added a new section. This section sits right between the scheduled and the finished section because it's basically in the middle. And we also added some visual highlighting options on job and task level for you to be able to quickly see that a task is or job is on standby. Let's take a quick look. So let's take a look here at job 12. And as I said earlier, we basically went through our internal design and drafting phase. We created a design, we made a cut drawing, we had an internal approval, and then we didn't hear back. We sent the data out to our customer and they did not get back to us. And at some point, taking a look at what else we have on our plate, we do need to make the decision, okay, they had that chance. Now we need to focus on others. We open the job details and have our status here. And as I said, this is a new job status, so it's right in this select box here. We just switch it to standby, hit OK, and now the magic happens. As you can see, job 12 is no longer part of the scheduled section. And as you also might have noticed, the sequence numbering changed. And that is for two reasons. If I collapse the scheduled section, here in the standby section, we now find our job 12. And we see it has been added to the front of the standby section. But that also means it has a very high increase in the sequence number because while we no longer schedule anything here, it needs to be below everything else. And to prove that nothing else was scheduled, down here, as you can see, there is no resource assignments anymore and also no process times as we do not process these. This is highlighted by the yellow coloration over here. So as always, the task status is reflected in the task number column on the left. So as what does this mean? Black still means finished, green still means started, and if neither of these were true, you would see the job status being reflected, so this is why these are yellow. Also, as you can clearly see, the job number is highlighted in yellow to make sure that you know, okay, the reason none of this is scheduled and I do not get any warning about it is because, well, it's on standby. Of course, as you can see here, this is also reflected in the highlights that I have selected here, which means in your color schemes, you can now also go ahead and add the standby as a new job status so that you can highlight whenever and wherever you need this. Of course, if you then finally do get feedback, it might be a lot later than you originally expected, which is why if you do go ahead and set this back to any of the other statuses, so let's set this back to released, it will be added on the end of the plan, but it will get scheduled again so that you can then go ahead and schedule it back where you now know it needs to go based on your other availabilities. Okay, that's basically it for today. If you do have questions, I will stay in the webinar for a couple of minutes. And again, please feel free to use either the chat or the questionnaire tools. Otherwise, thank you very much for your attention. If you do have questions or anything else that you do not have right now, feel free to either send me or us at support@justplanets.com a mail, and we will get back to you as soon as possible.